Hello, everybody. We are going to discuss about Internet of Things related to agriculture. I'm starting with the background. These are just few examples. I'm sorry, I have just some background noise. Able to reduce that. Okay, so this first page just represents what we are going to be talking about. By Internet of Things, letting things talking with us. By letting things talking with us in agriculture, we let plants, air, soil talking with us. So we connect those things. Here you can see 4 slides. These are actually Internet of Things implementation. I've been personally implementing many things using our own technology, which we developed over the years. It is something we developed between 2005 and 2012. Recently, we are focusing on decision support system. So here you can see some real examples of Internet of Things in agriculture. Let's do a step back and let's put some order into many definitions. Now we are talking about having many words, from digital agriculture to precision agriculture, precision farming, Internet of Things, farm management software. People just get lost. So people get lost, and it's a pity because those are tremendous opportunities. So let's sort out making order in order to understand what's all about and why. Why is that interesting for the farmers and agribusiness, agriculture domain? If we look into perspective, we are now in a phase role and has been branded as agriculture 4.0. That is duplicating industry 4.0, but if we put in perspective of agriculture, it's quite interesting. It's using digital to enable a knowledge revolution into agriculture, because at the end, digital is just like a language. Digital is translating in a common language digital machines. We can consider that like an international language, like English. You know, we are talking English, and probably people coming from different countries, so we can understand each other. So the same thing applies for the Internet of Things and the digital agriculture. So different things such as tractors, drones, sensors, and people can interact with each other using the digital language. So using the machines as a medium, internet as a highway. And it's basically using many tools to interact among each other and talk. And this is unleashing a great opportunity, the great opportunity of knowledge transfer, because this is ultimately the final scope. There is a tremendous opportunity in knowledge. We have been seeing, personally seeing situation where you can have from 30% increase up to 300% increase and even more, just changing the way things are done. And this is basically knowledge. In addition to that, we are going to talk about Internet of Things. Internet of Things enable also things talking with us. And by things in the agriculture domain, we may consider, for instance, the plants, which can start talking with us, the soil, the air, and the machines around it. So the way we see it is that basically, like doctors are using tools to help patients, the agronomist can using all these tools to provide better recommendations, but any farmer in general. Final scope is to optimize irrigation. So many situations, water is scarce. It's a resource that should be considered carefully, but in any way, over irrigating we create problem to the plants, underperforming. So optimizing pesticide, optimizing fertilization, optimizing labor, all these things can be optimized if we just listen to what the plants are saying, the soil condition, and if we could take the best choice. So overall benefits are throughout the whole value chain, from the farmers then can improve their benefits, the profits, consumers that can have better product at lower price, and the environment at the end. We can reduce pollution level and optimize the use of water. So this is the way we see. It can be seen, the agricultural field. Basically, it's something which is alive, constantly talking. And how to listen? Well, there are many ways to listen, but what is happening now with the digital agriculture, the digital revolution into agriculture, is that we can convert all this information into numbers. 0 and 1s is the language of digital. So soil, plants, air, and machines, everything can converge into the cloud, talking the same language and unleashing better decision. It is highly critical that several types of informations which are present and converted into the digital world, the digital domain, would be collected and then would be compared, would be aggregated, because otherwise, as often is happening right now in the implementation of the digital agriculture, is that several applications, several technologies are just focusing on a single part, which may be the operations, the practice of the people, going into the field, doing things, or maybe the Internet of Things itself, such as sensing, or maybe tractors and machines, drones, or just software, ERP, and other stock management system. Really, to unleash the power of the digital agriculture is combining all this information together. This is really critical. This is really important. What is happening at a single farm, it's, maybe happening is at a larger area where we can combine several farms and connecting them together, creating sort of virtual farm, and therefore aggregating the value chain. So for instance, an agribusiness, a food processor can really create a connection with the producers to the benefit of all of them. And so we can replicate the same process into data aggregation at a higher level. At the end, what we really want, this is a little more complex as a slide, what we really want is to implement the concept of adaptive management, which is already an established concept in many other domains, such as industry and management, to the agriculture. So basically, these things is IoT gathering data, for instance, then analyzing those data, then taking decision and doing actions, and these actions goes back into the software analytics and to the crops, having an effect. So we move ahead, gather more data, registering the actions effect. We have a recommendation, adaptation, and we follow the cycle. So when this is happening in a good way, we have a virtuous cycle of constant improvement. So this is ultimately the scope. So this is answering the question, why IoT into agriculture? Because otherwise there is no sense. I mean, why just to buy some sensors to implement in our field and creating the communication, looking at graphs? You know, we may tend to lose the final scope of it. Now let's focus on the data. So IoT is creating data, and we have many kind of data. So let's put some order here. Let's try to differentiate among the different types of data. And we can look at the data from this point of view: fixed data generator versus moving data generators. By data generators, we consider anything that may say something into the digital agriculture. These data can go to the cloud and can really support to take a decision. So from this point of view, we have human data that are divided into monitoring and sampling. For instance, people can go into the field and checking out a plant if the plant is having insects, or is having a problem, is having like a lack of nutrients, is having a disease, whatever. So people is moving, but is collecting actually data which are there, which are fixed. Or sampling, maybe soil sampling, for instance, the same apply. Versus moving data generators, in this case, the human moves, goes there and do an action which may be irrigating, pruning, harvesting, so it's actually doing something. And we consider the Internet of Things data generated as fixed data generators. So in this case, we have area generator sensors, and these are metastations. What does it mean? That it means that when you have a metastation, the metastation it's in a place, we consider that all the surrounding area to be representative. So we are not going to put 20 metastations in 1 kilometer square, for instance. It's probably too much. We consider that area homogeneous, and we're going to put one metastation. Versus points observations, there we put sensors which can be soil humidity, dendrometers, and we are going to explore these areas. So the machines, for instance, maybe satellite, drones, lands such as tractors, robots, these are into the moving data generators. So this slide will help starting to have an understanding that we are focusing on this area when we are talking about Internet of Things into agriculture. So this is another way to see fixed data generators, zooming in. So we have these applying to 3 different areas. So at the crop level, at above soil conditions, and the soil conditions, right? So we want to know where the plants are staying. So part of the plant is above, another part of the plant is below. So we want to keep track of what is happening, monitoring all these 3. So mainly IoT focuses historically on these 2 areas. So above soil conditions, we have metastation, air temperature, metastation which includes air temperature, air humidity, pluviometer, sorry, there is a mistake, anemometer, leaf wetness, solar radiation. These are the most important. Often, when you want to buy a metastation, well, this is the standard one, right? The soil is usually soil temperature and soil humidity at different layers. Soil humidity is really the king here. If you want to have a basic implementation of Internet of Things in agriculture, we really want to have several soil humidity sensors, which ideally are placed at different levels. By several, I mean at least 3 per crop, identifying specific different conditions, which one may be more receiving more sun, another maybe in a dark area, and another in an intermediate situation. Soil temperature, it's also interesting in certain application. Irrigation values monitoring, meaning connecting to the valves, it's also interesting when it's available. And salinity, it may be also interesting. It's less used, but it may be highly relevant in certain conditions. There are also here the example of the equivalent of human operation, which we're not to dig in now. I'd like to spend a few words about the crop IoT sensors. You know, so historically, the major attention was on the above soil conditions, and then move to the soil condition. You know, above soil condition, it has a long history. For instance, we have meteo stations that may be 40 years old, you know, probably replaced, but all the weather prediction, weather forecast, weather condition are based on these information plus the satellites. So over the time, there's been more density into this domain up to now that any farmer, medium-sized farmer can really afford having a meteo station, and this is really the basic recommended, you know, because this will give you an information about your specific microclimate conditions. So all these data will really be important to take decision. You can run agronomic model on those data, and the more the data are talking about your specific crop, the more the model would be precise into providing a recommendation. Now, recently, given the wireless, the RF advancement in technology, it is possible with little effort, little problems, and affordable cost to finally have more little sensors that are detached from the meteo station that you can put around, and finally tracking what is happening on the soil, getting rid of cables. Cables maybe used anyway, but you know, it's a little more complicated. What I was saying is that now we can finally starting, it is happening, to monitor directly the plants, which usually are the trees for orchards. And one sensor which we have been implementing over the last years are dendrometers. Dendrometers are very interesting. They are recording in real time the conditions of lymph passing through the plant. So they are very precise. You can see the daily hydric stress. So you can see that the plant is going into hydric stress during the day, recovering in the evening and during the night. And so you can have a daily cycle, but as well you can have a seasonal cycle, and you can see the growth of the plant day by day. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. It's like based on these data, you, instead of looking at the soil and having an idea about what is the soil content of water, you can really basically asking the plant, are you thirsty? So it's moving to that level of precision. And I've personally seen other sensors which are on their way, under development. Some of them are already on the market, but on as prototypes. Leaf sensors. Leaf sensors are quite interesting. This is the future. Leaf sensors. They can take samples of micro voltage communication within the plant, and they are under development. There are many ways to interpret those signals. So again, maybe may represent any kind of stress of the plant, and if you have that in real time, it's really translating the plant's language. It's really exciting. I've seen that in real time. You can put a heat source close to the plant that will provide some stress, and the plant immediately respond with a different voltage. So provided you can interpret this signal, it's really like talking with a plant, listening directly to the plant. So IoT is really moving ahead. Now let's focus more on IoT, because IoT is not just sensors. You know, you have several modules which are critical to have IoT happening into agriculture. Sensor are the part of listening, right? Sensor is basically listening. It's the ears of the IoT system. But you know, if you have an ear that is not connected to a body, it's nothing. So how to connect this ear to a body and ultimately to a brain? Then you need an infrastructure. So over the last 10, 15 years, even more, there's been a tremendous improvement in technology in order to enable affordable ways to make it easy, plug-and-play solution. Basically, I'm referring to RF communication. Indeed, sensors are talking with the IoT system through RF communication. Then, so the IoT is basically the telecommunication at local level. It would then move the information to the cloud, and finally, we need a way to get in touch with this information, to close the loop. So we want this information to reach us, and so the app of the smartphone really helped to close this loop. So basically, the example I was making, which is going to be happening in the future very soon, where you're going to have the plants talking to these leaf sensors, then you in real time or near real time, in a few minutes, you're going to see the plant is under stress, and you can intervene, or you can close the loop automatically. If it's a high stress, you can open the valves. You can have the system opening the valves according to certain conditions. Now, this is another scheme of the IoT system, talking about this several modules. It's a little more technical. What do we have here? Here we have the things. The things are connected to sensors or actuators. What are actuators? Actuator is, for instance, a valve opening. So if you want to switch, open something, do something automatically, that's an actuator. So Internet of Things is about listening and doing automatically. So you have sensors that are listening, soil sensors, air sensors, solar radiation sensors, dendrometers, and many others. Just sticking to the agriculture, otherwise the list is much longer. Those sensors are normally, in the Internet of Things, are normally connected through RF. So you have a micro radio, which is communicating with a local repeater or a local gateway, which is basically a little computer like the size of a mobile phone and the power consumption of a mobile phone. Sometimes also they are connected through cable. Normally the cable ones are the older. And at this point, the gateway has the challenge, the responsibility to take all this information and forward this information to the cloud. Into the cloud, you have how can I move that? In the cloud, you have the backend. Finally, you have some server which is processing this information, is taking care to aggregating this information, to provide an easy view of this information, and eventually to doing some automatically calculation, which is applying agronomic models and supporting to make decision. And so these are the two ways to see when you see business data analytics and user access and control. These are basically the tool through your laptop or through your smartphone, which are connected to the cloud. Basically, those are connected to remote server. And the remote server so will take care of the communication with the users and the communication with the field. How do I go to? So this is a view, this is an example. This is an example of view of the basic installation. Well, no, this is a complete installation, we may say. Let's think about an orchard where you have plant sensors, in this case, just sticking to dendrometers. You may have soil humidity and temperature basic. You can have automatic valves that are recording what is happening into the pipe, so you will know the flow of water, when and how much water is going into your orchard. Then you have a meter station which is providing microclimate condition about the air, the sun presence, wind, and so on. So all the leaf is gonna happen soon. You can add pheromonal traps. There are some pheromonal traps which are automatic. Well, I do recommend at this point to stick on the manual. So there are many ways to go and watch what is happening into your pheromonal traps in just putting the data into your smartphone in order to aggregate all these data. Once all these data are aggregated, there is lots of things you can do. Probably in another webinar, we can discuss about that. This is a nice way to see, we have this 4 element historically, air, water, sun, and earth. And how do we connect the sensors to these 4 basic elements? So you have specific one, which are solar radiation. This is just a trick to memorize, so solar radiation sticks to the sun, specifically to the sun, anemometer just to the movement of the air, pluviometer just for the irrigation, pluviometer and irrigation valves to the water moving, and soil nutrients and salinity just to the air. Then you have the combination of them. If you have solar radiation plus water, leaf wetness, actually we should consider air as well. You have air humidity, air plus water plus air, soil humidity, earth plus sun, it's soil temperature. It's just a trick to remember the major values which are more critical into IoT for agriculture. So this is another example of implementation I've been personally working it. Just to give you an idea of what is in this example, you have soil humidity at 2 different and layer B. This is up to you. You have this kind of sensor. You decide the way to important. You may have very good sensor, but install them not properly, and the data you're gonna gather would be it is important to take sampling at different levels in several applications, but you know that maybe 2-3 level, depending on the plant, depending on the soil condition. This is another example. In this case, we are going to take humidity at the first level, humidity. So this is a special air humidity sensor, which is especially designed to resist to water flooding. So it is working regardless, it's going to be flooded by water, and is informing you about the upper layer of your ground. This is an example of a gateway, right? A forest gateway, maybe working as SMS or GPRS. There are others that are working Wi-Fi, but in that case, it's not appropriate for these kind of applications. Solar panel normally is enough to provide energy required for autonomously working. Ideally, an IoT system should provide as little maintenance as possible. This is finally an ongoing test we're doing with our partners, which are called Sensorscope in Switzerland. and with Agroscope, which is the research institution, federal research institution for agriculture in Switzerland. It's a very interesting solution to closing the loop. You know, we have this is in a greenhouse. We have sensors, and these are tomato plants now. They're grown up. Sensors and irrigation system working in parallel. Therefore, the irrigation system would go according to a specific pattern that has been decided and that can be remotely updated. But at the same time, the irrigation system would take into consideration the values provided by the sensor. So, for instance, if you have a rainy day and the pattern would tell you, okay, this is time to, wouldn't work. So is not only greenhouses that in many cases have already this kind of solution, but open fields. Now I'm closing it with this chart. You know, this chart is like probably a little over optimistic, and certainly a little over optimistic in terms of years of deployment, but we'll give it probably a couple of years old. It does give you an idea of the expectations of the Internet of Things adoption, right? Of course, this is talking about several different applications by domotic, smart city, industry, and security, energy management, and much, much more. I believe that agriculture in itself may represent a great opportunity for the Internet of Things. We started to work in Internet of Things in 2003, actively in 2005, and I've been working into many domains, all outdoors. But decided to focus on agriculture in 2009-10 because, you know, agriculture, it's very, very interesting application for the Internet of Things. And then we decided to move from the hardware and to the specific Internet of Things to the upper level of analytics, which is also very exciting. And maybe we'll discuss that in another webinar. And but anyway, regardless, what this chart is saying, despite that it's probably, as I said, over optimistic on the short term, I believe this is going to happen because, you know, one of the factors that is slowing down the adoption is a matter of economy of scale. Because adoption in this case, it's like self pushing, self feeding. Once you have more devices in field, you have lower prices. The lower is the price, because for industrial manufacturing, the lower is the price, the more is the adoption, and so goes on and goes on, because the need is there. Technology is almost mature. There are factors which are keeping still slow the adoptions, lack of standards. Now we have LoRa, which is interesting. We have others coming out, but there is still a lack of standard. There are all the ingredients are there, so it's just a matter of time. They will just explode. There's going to be sometime soon where you can buy sensors with affordable price, a few tens of dollars for each sensor, and let's say a basic IoT station with a meta station plus a few number of sensors, 6 to 10, is going to cost you $500. This is going to happen soon. And then new sensor you will buy for, as I said, 20, 30, $50. And you can have really your field constantly talking to you. But as I said in the introduction of this presentation, it is very important that those data, those information will become decision support. So it's not just that Internet of Things, it's just a piece of the puzzle. To have the real benefit, you need to have the whole puzzle completed. So the whole puzzle is made of other data sources gathering and combining with the IoT. And then you need to have a decision support system, which is flexible enough to receive knowledge out of the community and to convert this knowledge in easy recommendation for everybody. As I said, we are almost there. Smartphone is almost ubiquitous. Apps are easy to develop. Many applications are there. And actually, we are really focusing in creating this glue at application level in order to combine all these pieces of the puzzle to provide a global view to the final user. The final user are the farmers. The farmers should make use of these technologies to make their life easier and better, meaning more profits. This is the closure of this presentation. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully, we'll see each other again in the future.